In this episode, I interview Jeremy Jacobowitz, who is an amazing food blogger and influencer who's based out of New York. Now, he's based out of New York, but he has dined with restaurants all over the world and has accumulated over 500,000 followers who are so invested into what he recommends when it comes to restaurants. Obviously, a lot of restaurants love him to dine at the restaurant because as soon as he does and posts about it, his fans go crazy over the brands he works with. Obviously, he's had lots of different experiences with lots of different restaurants. And so in this podcast, we discuss a number of different topics from what he believes restaurants should be doing to what they should be taking advantage of and how they can ultimately create the best experience for their guests. And so if you're a restaurateur who wants to learn directly from one of the best food bloggers in the world, you are going to love this episode. And so without further ado, let's dive right in. Hi, my name is Brett Linkletter, CEO and co-founder of Misfit Media, a restaurant marketing agency, and Dineline, a lead generating and sales converting software tool built just for restaurants. Right now, you're listening to our podcast, Restaurant Misfits, where we'll discuss all things related to restaurant marketing, management, and everything else in between growing a restaurant business. Scaling a restaurant today takes much more than having grit and hustle. In this age, it's about utilizing the latest technologies available, consistently educating yourself on new platforms and trends, and having a deep understanding of how this industry is so rapidly changing. This podcast is dedicated to keeping you up to speed with the latest and greatest through interviewing the biggest and best in the restaurant industry. Additionally, this podcast is also brought to you in collaboration with Total Food Service. For over 30 years, Total Food Service has provided the restaurant and food service industry with exclusive interviews to the latest news on products, trends, associations, and events. You can sign up for a free monthly subscription by visiting totalfood.com today. And from all the misfits over here, we hope you enjoy the show. Hey everyone, it's Brett, and I'm sitting here with Jeremy Jacobowitz, who is the president of the Brunch Boys and an amazing social media influencer in the food space. Jeremy, how you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely, man. I'm super excited to chat with you. So for all of our listeners who are just learning about kind of who you are and really what you do, can you just give us like a just general idea of how you got into the space, who you are, and really what it is that you do in this industry?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, I think like at the end of the day, it's like, yes, I'm an influencer. That is how I make money. It's not always my favorite thing to call myself, I guess, because I think there's some like weird stigma with it. And like, what I truly do is I say now, like, it's like my food adventures all over the world, but like I produce videos about food and my travel and my experience and whatever. And then they go on my social channels. So my biggest social channel is Instagram, but TikTok and YouTube and literally anywhere else that needs to go, that content goes there. My background though is the same thing. Like my background is working in TV. So to me, it's always been a very similar thing. And I worked in food TV. I worked in sports TV first and then food TV. So I've been in the food world for a very long time, but I've been doing it on my own away from TV for about 6 or 7 years now.
Got it. Nice. So obviously you said, okay, you had a background in kind of this looks like kind of entertainment type of space industry. What was so attractive to you about just diving into the food space?
You know, what happened was, so I went to NYU for sports management. And while I was there, I started working in sports TV. And like that was the goal. I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do, but I love TV and I love sports, and it sort of just made sense. And I sucked at sports, so this is my way to be around sports. But this is, I always say decade ago. It's now over a decade ago when I worked in sports, and there just weren't that many places to work. I interned and worked at SNY when I was in college. I worked at WCBS when I was in college. I worked at WWE post college, and at the time there were maybe, I don't know, 4 other places to work besides local news stations, which I knew I did not want to do. Mm-hmm. So I was just like, well, I love TV and, this is fun. And I did a lot of things that I wanted to do in sports TV. I was in every locker room. I interviewed every player. I like did all the fun shit anyway. And I was like, well, what else is there? TV is massive. I love all TV. It doesn't have to be sports TV. And I just went back to being a PA. So just like taking out the trash and driving trucks and whatever. And in New York, like reality TV is like reality TV, like Housewives, or it's food. And I just ended up in food TV, and I was like, oh wow, like I've always loved food. I've always loved cooking. I've always loved everything about it. I just never even thought that there could be an opportunity for me to work in it all, because I didn't want to be a chef. And to me, like, that is what the restaurant world is. But I was like, oh wow, like I could be a part of this, producing, telling stories, and have it be about food. And it was doing it, which made me be like, oh wow, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And so I ended up PAing stuff, and then I ended up being Bobby Flay's PA. So I was just with Bobby on all of his shows, and like, when you're with Bobby, like, you're ingrained in the food TV world, and like, what better person to learn from other than like literally like the fucking king of it. So then I did that for years. I was producing, so it's a food competition, food travel, blah, blah, blah. And that just became so passionate, just like telling those stories and being in the kitchens and traveling and eating and doing all this stuff. And then, yeah, when social media came up, it was all happenstance really. And it just became like, wow, I could still do what I love, which is doing exactly that, but away from TV. And TV was very frustrated for many, many, many reasons. I much rather prefer doing online content, and I much rather prefer doing it for myself. So,
well, was it just out of curiosity? We don't have to go too far down this rabbit hole, but like, what was it about TV that was frustrating to you? Is it like the kind of restrictions about what you could talk about? I'm assuming
everything. It's you know, I always used to joke. I was like, to work in TV, it's only because you're passionate about it, because you're never going to make any money and you're always going to kill yourself. And I was passionate about it, but I think like over time you just get worn down. It just like destroys you. And yeah, at the end of the day, like, it's not your creativity on screen, because there's a million layers, and nor should it be. Like, the shows aren't made by one person; they're made by a team, and it's always a team effort. But it's still a frustration of like, oh, but like, my idea was better, and like, it would have worked.
Yeah,
and it wasn't. You know what I mean? Like, at every level. So it was frustrating there. The work was frustrating. It was grueling. I wasn't finding projects that I was super excited about. Like, how many of the same exact food competition shows are going to make over and over and over again? Like, like, you know what I mean? Like, I worked on one of the last food shows I did is Beat Bobby. And like, I love Beat Bobby. Like, that show is fucking great. But like, for every one Beat Bobby, there's 1,000 other dumb shows. I'm just like, man, I don't care. Like, so now I wasn't passionate about it. So it's just like, well, what am I doing? Like, and it wasn't even thought like, oh, I have to quit TV, because I still didn't think there's another option. When I left TV, like, people weren't even getting paid. I just was like, oh, let me take a little break, whatever. And then this influencer thing grew, and I happened to have an account.
What year was that when you were like, hey, this influencer thing could be a thing for me? Like, when was that?
6 or 7 years ago. I forget.
Nice.
But yeah, it wasn't. But what I did, it was just like, in TV, I was always freelance. So like, I wrapped up a gig, and I was like, you know what? Then we just play with this weird Instagram account. Like, people want me to like go to dinners and stuff. Like, that's cool. Like, I never could do any of that stuff. I'm in TV. So I just took off, and then like, all these opportunities came up, and then people started wanting to pay me. And then when I really understood that I could do this for real, that was the first time I thought about it being real. I didn't have any goal of that. I always just figured, I'll play with this between gigs, and I'll go back to TV, because what else am I going to do? It all sort of worked out perfectly.
But you know why there's such a demand for someone like you in this industry is because so many restaurateurs have trouble making their food look good, making good looking content that they can share with the world on social. Honestly, like, legitimately. I mean, it's really.
I was gonna say, but it's everything. Like, I think it's like, obviously, like, most of my content is like restaurants inviting me in, me filming and posting about it, pro, whatever. But like, I try and explain to people, like, dude, like, it's not necessarily even about me coming in. Yes, if I come in, like, it's a measurable impact. Generally, hopefully, that's my job. But at the same time, like, every single person comes into your restaurant and takes photos of the food. Everybody. Like, so like, it's just like, it's a different thought process, and nor should these restaurateurs or chefs understand it necessarily. Like, it's not even necessarily about the plating, but like, I think like, oh, like a moody, sexy, dark restaurant is so cool, but like, dude, no one can take photos there. Like, you are limiting your exposure to reach people to come into your restaurant, because like, you didn't think about that. You didn't think that like, there's no natural light coming into here, and now the amount of exposure you could be getting from everybody. Forget about me. I'm coming in when the restaurant's closed. I'm bringing my own lighting. I'll make that shit look good. But like, most people don't. And now like, that geotag is not going to be full of people taking photos of your dishes or whatever. It's a totally different mindset, but it's such an advantage that they have now. It's like, restaurants like don't have to rely on PR or traditional, or like dying for some person to come in there and review them. Like, they just have everyone in there promoting them constantly. It's great.
Totally. Yes. I spoke to the head chef of Tao Group a few months back. He was also on the podcast, and he was saying when they create their food and their menu, it's number one is, hey, we want it to taste good. But
Right.
but second, number two is, how can I make it more colorful, more Instagram friendly, all that kind of stuff. But I just feel like so many restaurateurs, I mean, especially our clientele, we struggle with a lot because we started as an agency. Our company was Misfit Media, hence Restaurant Misfits. And then that kind of evolved into, we launched a software about 6 months ago called Dineline, which is like a marketing and CRM tool. But whatever the case, over our 7-year period, we've been in business about 7 years too. We've always struggled with our clients to deliver good looking content that we could help them market. Always. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of on your same page here too. Is like, dude, use the user generated content that people are already doing. If you're a restaurateur in your 50s or 60s or 70s and you don't know how to use an iPhone or Instagram, doesn't matter. Just look at what people tagged you in and use that.
Yep.
I mean, come on. It's crazy.
Yeah.
What kind of restaurants you typically work with? I mean, like, who's reaching out to you out of curiosity? Because clearly people that care about this stuff, are they, I mean, any kind of niche at all? Or is it kind of across the board?
It's everything. I mean, I'm pitched mostly, like restaurant people just like DM me from their account. A lot of it, especially in New York, is just PR, like their social media management company that works with them or whatever. Like, and those are connections that I've built for years. So it's very easy. Like literally, like they'll send me a text like, hey man, I got a new client. Like, here's the menu. If you see anything, it's really interesting to you. I think for me, I'm not a big, like, I'm a very casual kind of eater. So like, those are the things that excite me much more than like, and also you have to remember, like, what I do is like, I don't really experience these restaurants necessarily. I'm just going in to feature this dish. So restaurant that's all about fine dining, the food's gonna be amazing, but like, you're paying for that experience. You want to go there for that experience. And it's hard to capture because I don't go there when they're open. So a lot of it's just more like, yesterday, like I went to a place just opened, Mother Duck. It's like casual Asian fun food. I shot some crispy rice. Like, great. I can capture. Yes, I'm sure this restaurant's a lot of fun actually. And like, I actually would like to go back there and eat for real. But in terms of the content that I need to get, I'm like, let me go there and let me get this crispy rice. Let me make it look good. It tasted amazing. Let me showcase that. And like, it totally works. That's more my style than anything else.
Do you shoot all yourself, or do you have someone that comes with you and shoots you, or how's that work?
Nope. I do it all myself.
Really?
One man band.
Oh my God. Wait, so you shoot everything yourself? You do all the editing yourself, the whole package?
Nobody does anything else.
What do you shoot with, just out of curiosity? What kind of camera do you shoot with?
The camera I have on me right now, I have a Canon R5.
Nice. Wow, that's really incredible, man. That's a lot of work.
It's never the eating is the smallest part of what I do, and the rest of my day is just sat here at my desk editing away.
And I'm assuming it's gone well for you.
Yeah. I mean, I love it. Like, I mean, it's given me every opportunity in the whole world. It lets me do what I want to do. Like, it's not easy. Like, this is what I try to explain to people. I think like there's a huge thing right now because of like the people like popping off in TikTok and stuff, of people being like, wow, like I made one viral video, time to quit my job and do this. And I'm just like, man, like it's not that easy. It's hard. Like, it's not the hardest job in the whole world, but like, there's a lot of downsides to it too. Like a lot of downsides that I didn't necessarily see because of my background on TV. One, like I'm used to producing and editing, and I wasn't used to physically doing stuff. I had to teach myself physically how to shoot, how to light, how to do all those things. But at least like I knew how to produce. But two, it's just like, when I was in TV, I was always freelance. So I've never had a full-time job ever. I've always had to fight for money. I still have to fight for money every day. I've never had benefits. I've never had insurance. Like all those things I didn't have in TV and I don't have now. So really the things that you really have to look at if you're going to step away from your full-time job, I didn't have to worry about. For most people, I tell them like, man, don't like, yes, if you end up having so much money in and you really think you can make it and you're actually passionate about it and and you have a plan in place, of course, like if you don't want to do your job, don't do your job, who cares? But I find that right now it's a whole push of people being like, they quit their job before any of that stuff happens. It's like, well, like totally. No, like I was watching his video. I just sent it to someone, so it's like on top of my mind. This dude, oh my God, it was so pathetic. I sort of feel bad. This dude put up this TikTok video about his experience. I forget if it was Jake or Logan Paul. I get them all confused. But basically, he's in his car crying. And he's like, he's like, my dreams have just been shattered. I had this, he's probably like 25. Or he said he's like just graduated college. So he had a job, $100,000 a year, just graduated college. He quit his job because he was convinced that he had to go work for goddamn Jake Paul or whatever, Logan Paul. So he quits his job, sneaks backstage to like a boxing thing, finds Paul. And he's like, dude, like my dream is to work for you. Like I just quit my job, and we'll just say Jake Paul for the hell of it. And Jake Paul's like, what? He's like, well, are you qualified for anything? He's like, no, but like, dude, this is my dream. Jake Paul's like, why would I hire you? What are you good at? He's like, I don't know. I just got to find out, but I knew this. Like you could see Jake Paul be like, dude, like, what are you talking about? Like,
oh my God.
And that is the mentality of like, yeah, maybe have like your ducks in a row if you're going to quit you graduate college, make $100,000 a year. Like, geez, that took me over a decade. Like,
yeah,
like I understand it's a dream to work for yourself, but it's not as easy as you think. And like,
totally
get your shit together and then do it, and then go after it. Like, oh God.
I totally agree. I mean, wow. Yeah. I mean, well, clearly the guy has to be somewhat smart. He's making 100,000 a year out of college, but then he's missing some things and just quit.
I mean, listen, I'm sure his job wasn't great. Maybe it sucked, whatever. Like people ask me this today. I get asked this every day about that. I'm like, I hate my job. What do I do? And I tell them a few things. Like one, if you really, really, really hate it, okay. But again, have a plan, have a strategy. Don't just quit your job. Like even when I left TV, when I made a decision not to go back to TV necessarily, I set myself up. I said, okay, people are starting to pay me. What does this mean? So I gave myself a timeline. I said, I know how much money I have in the bank. I know how much my rent is. If I cut out every other expense, going out with friends, going to the gym, everything I could cut, let me cut that expense out. How long can I make it? And it was like 4 months. I was like, okay, I'll give myself 4 months. And if I'm not there in 4 months, and to go back to TV. Like, yes, it's easier because in TV, you're always jumping around. I never quit my job. I just said no to shows, and it was an easier mental decision. But like, I had a plan in place to do that. And then it luckily worked out, but like I had a strategy.
Well, I would say that the one interesting thing about COVID is now, because everyone's working remote, right, is, you know, I as an employer, I don't like that this is a thing, but it's happened in the sense that I saw so many of my friends with full-time jobs that were working remote and are now pursuing all these other things while they're on the payroll at their company and doing other things. Suddenly, when you're not at the office, you know, and look, again, as an employer, that scares the hell out of me. But I see it. You know what I mean?
But like at the same time, like that actually is what I tell people though. Like for the most part, I tell people, I'm like, listen, if you want to dream of quitting your job and having your passion be your thing, that's incredible. But just realize that that's very, very rare. Instead, I think what your goal should be is to have a job that allows you to have the freedom to also be passionate about things. Yeah. And be able to, on the weekends, do whatever makes you happy in the weekends and get through the work week and like at least have that balance. And then like you're financially secure, you're providing for your family, and you still feel like you have an outlet. If you don't have an outlet, yes, that's terrible, but at least try and get there, because I think you're going to feel much, much, much better about things.
I always tell everyone is like, hey, winning life is doing what you love, making money, and helping people if you can, right? Mm-hmm. If you can do all three of those things, you're legit winning life, and that's amazing. Let's talk real quick about different social platforms. You said you're on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. I would say most restaurateurs that we speak to are on Facebook and Instagram, doing an average job, unfortunately. A lot, though, are interested in doing TikTok. I know you said you're on TikTok. What are your thoughts on TikTok? Should restaurants be utilizing TikTok?
I've worked with restaurants and I've set up their TikTok pages and I've managed their TikTok pages and I've produced content for the TikTok pages. I think what's a struggle with that is, and even the struggle now, even on Instagram, is like, these things are all set up for personality driven stuff. Yeah. You could get food to pop off, but it's like, how many restaurant menus aren't that big? So like how many times you can do the same video over and over and over again. I think like the key, especially if you want to be on TikTok, is to have someone on camera be representing that restaurant. Obviously, the chef is the best thing. It doesn't mean they have to, because if they suck, there's no point in doing it. Totally. And listen, most restaurants are not going to have an amazing on-camera chef. They're not hired for that necessarily. But if you
Yeah.
have it, I think that is when you take advantage of it. If you don't, I would more rely on having other people come in and post about you than necessarily having a restaurant page. I mean, Instagram makes a lot more sense just because like there's so many links and you could even order online from Instagram. There's so many like monetary reasons to have an Instagram page, and the geotag is so critical. Like you want that. To have a TikTok,
For sure.
to me, it's like, unless you're going to have it be personality driven in some way, whether it's the owner, you can make it fun. I don't know. Maybe you have a fun bartender, just like it's so energetic that they could speak to the food. Like, great. You
Totally.
could, like, I'm sure that if you have a 22-year bartender, they'll be happy. Well, maybe they won't be happy. It's a lot more extra work. But if you paid them on top of what you paid them already, they'll be happy to make TikToks.
No, you're right. I think that's a good point though, is TikTok is such a personality driven platform, right? I saw some guy, some TikToker, I forget his name, but he was saying that there is such a demand for brands in general today to be hiring kids in their 20s or whatever to manage their TikTok because of that, be the face of their TikTok.
I mean, even like a great example I always say is like Washington Post. Like Washington Post is goddamn newspaper, but if you look at their TikTok, they have one guy, he's like 27. And yes, he's relating information about the news generally, but they're all really funny and really well done. And
it's like him. Yeah.
You're personality driven. And
that's a good example.
Him the face of it.
That's interesting. And so you said brands have asked you this. Are you still doing it for them?
Yeah. I mean, if someone asked me to produce stuff for them, sure, I'll give them the same advice I always give everyone. But if they're like, we really think a page is worth it. Okay, great. Well, then let's strategize on what type of content that could be. And food does work on TikTok. Like you could have videos do well. You just won't ever really get followers necessarily. Cause like, why would you follow a restaurant on TikTok? But if you pump out enough videos, you'll get some traction.
For sure. Yeah. I've been honestly, so I got TikTok about probably a year ago. I was subscribed to the whole idea that it's just for kids. It's just dancing, but it's so much more than that. It is definitely not. So I've had some mediocre success on it. I think it's a great platform. We're not suggesting it to our clientele yet, but I think maybe over the next 6 to 12 months, we will be. I don't know.
Yeah.
Random question for you. So another trend that we typically see a lot as marketers, as in kind of the software space, is one-to-one messaging. Restaurants that are connecting with their fans on just one-to-one through, whether that's through Facebook Messenger or Instagram or text. Yeah. Do you as well kind of see a trend towards one-to-one messaging? I mean, or specifically text message marketing?
I mean, I think for my personal thing, like my DMs are very much open. All my followers already have that access. Actually, to be fair, I shut that off in TikTok because people who don't follow me would just send me random videos and it's driving me crazy. But my DMs on Instagram are always open. That is very much part of what I do, and my strategy is to I wake up at 5:30 every single morning. The first thing I do is I go through every single DM.
Wow.
So I think like if you are someone else and maybe like it makes sense to push someone somewhere else to have that access, sure.
Yeah.
Personality driven wise, for me, like that's sort of like my strategy for Instagram. So it's not a big deal to me. I think restaurant wise, I think like I would just do whatever is going to be easiest for you, because 99% of the things you deal with from a restaurant page is going to be like either being like, what time are you open, or complaining about something. So it's customer service. So whatever's going to be easiest for you to handle that customer service, that's what you should do. So if it is a texting thing or whatever it is, use it, but just make it as easy as possible for you, because that's
for sure.
It's a huge part.
Yeah, and that's I think like what they think about is like, oh, well, if I suddenly make that part of my strategy of customer service, like who's going to be talking to these people? Like I can't, I don't have the time for that personally, and so I get the resistance. Something I always notice in general though for in this industry is that like a lot of restaurateurs are somewhat resistant to tech. I would say since COVID, that totally changed a lot, because suddenly they're like, oh my God, we're not getting this foot traffic. We got to figure it out online. Right. But it's always something I've noticed. Something that I'm sure has been blowing up, especially over New York and especially here in California too, but it's been cloud kitchens. What are your thoughts on kind of the emergence of this new business model? And have you worked with any brands that were specifically cloud kitchens?
I haven't. I guess I have worked a little bit, but it's more like places that just happen to also open up those kitchens. Like I did some stuff for like Fuku, obviously has like legitimate stores, places, but also opens up some ghost kitchens in Brooklyn just to deliver stuff. In general, like, listen, like I'll order in from them. What do I care? Oh, there's a burrito place. It's actually a burrito place from LA that opens up a ghost kitchen here that I ordered in from. It was great. It's just like best damn breakfast burrito. Like literally that's it. Anyway.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about. Is it,
yeah.
Wait, does it have like a gold, like wrapping on it? Like actual gold?
I don't remember. It was good though. It was very good. In terms of like me, like posting about them necessarily, like, yes, if I order in organically, I'll post about them. I don't care. It's just a filming with them. I just feel like it's not the story I really want to tell. Like I'd rather support the restaurants that are open. And listen, restaurants, I had a conversation with the restaurateur the other day and he was just like, he's like, what's the trend that you see in restaurants right now? He's like, you know, you're in it. Like, what do you see? And I said to him, I was like, honestly, the trends I see is like people figuring out like what is a restaurant. So listen, if the ability for restaurants to survive is to have more of those, great, do it. Totally. For me to like go film it and talk about it that way, I really want to be more in kitchens and doing it like if I'd rather choose to be at a restaurant that's fully open and promote that if I'm going to take my time to do something.
Have you ever thought about opening your own cloud kitchen?
No. No. Well, one, I think like that's all food based and like that's not what I would do at all. I think like I always say like, because people ask me just like in general if I would ever get involved in the restaurant industry, like the only way I'd ever get involved is if I was so rich that it didn't matter. So like my dream would be like to be, you know what I mean? Like my dream would be like, hey, I have so much money. I love finding talent. Like when I worked in TV, my favorite thing is finding talent. Like my dream would be like, be so rich to be able to find a chef and be like, dude, like you need your own restaurant. Here is as much money as you need. Go make it happen. And if it works, that's wonderful. If it doesn't work, what's the difference? And I don't want to hear about it other than that. Go fucking do what you need to do. And I could walk in and, you know, enjoy dinner or whatever. But like, that's the extent of it.
Reason I've asked is because like the whole idea of a cloud kitchen, right, is that you can literally start a restaurant online, like an e-commerce brand. And there's really like very low cost to get started. I mean, you don't have to pay for this huge space and rental fees and I'll get to all the equipment and all this stuff. You know, you could literally rent a kitchen, like using cloud kitchens or a lot of other companies are doing the same thing now. You rent a kitchen space, just like WeWork, whatever, hire one chef and you're off to the races.
Yeah.
I don't know. Someone like yourself, it seems like it could be interesting. Especially because
I wouldn't want to be, I just wouldn't want to be involved.
Yeah.
At that point, you're still like, you can't just piss off about that. Like you actually have to still be on top of it. Not that I would even be developing a recipe, right? You'd have a chef, but just like at that point you're running a business and like,
for sure,
I don't have the capacity to do anything else beyond what I'm doing. So listen, I never say no to any opportunity. I always say like, I would listen to everybody and I would think about everything. I think it's silly to just say no because especially if your excuse is you don't have time, it's the worst excuse. Sure. But generally my thought process is like, I don't know if it's more like, I don't know if I'm passionate about that. If an opportunity comes up that I think is cool and someone offers me something cool that gets me passionate about it, cool, let's do it. But so far, just like in a very general sense, I'm like, whatever. Leave it to people that really know what they're doing.
100%. 100%. Yeah. What are some, like, kind of random question, but what are some problems that you see in the restaurant space? Like what are some things that you've identified as like, why do they do it this way? Or can't this be better? I mean, you have a pretty unique perspective, I think, on the industry doing what you do. What are just some problems that you see? You're like, what the heck? Like, why?
I mean, honestly, just because I view everything much more on like the social side, it is their social media. It's just like, I don't think it's not even necessary. I get that it's a lot of work that they don't want to do. They don't really understand it. It's frustrating. But I think like I always stress, I'm like, hire someone. I know that's like the worst thing for restaurant owners to strap for cash always, but I'm just like, yeah, you don't have to pay that much money. But like, I think if you hire someone, I think you'll see success. Just having someone run it, like that's literally it. Just someone on top of it, you'll see success. But I also try and stress like what that success is. And when I tell them, it's like, especially now, it's not like it was 6 years ago. Like 6 years ago, I think people are much more willing to follow restaurants. Yeah. I think now people follow a restaurant if it's their favorite restaurant, if it's their neighborhood thing. They're not just going to follow it because you had one giant food porn dish. I mean, maybe they will, but whatever.
Yeah.
So I tell them like, you can't deem like when I'm hired by someone to run their social, what I tell them is like, yes, at the end of the day, we want to grow the account. We want to have good engagement, and we want to hopefully convert some of that engagement into customers, which isn't always the easiest thing to do, but generally that's the goal. But what I tell them, I'm like, that's a very slow process. Like, the value that you're going to get when you work out of me is I'm going to help you shape your brands online. And we're going to do that through your social media. And like, I always say, like, you know, when you open a restaurant, like, the thought that's put into every single inch of this restaurant, from the food to the decor to the music to the staff to everything, like, is the same kind of thought process you want to have on your Instagram account. Like I always say, like, you know, yeah, maybe like a giant foodborne account would get more followers, but I'm like, that's not your restaurant. Like, you don't want that. Like, I think it's much better for you to have an account that represents your restaurant, even if that doesn't mean as many followers. So pay me to help you shape that, help me get the photos and the videos and whatever, and create that identity, and slowly build that identity online and invite influencers in and take advantage of the whole system. But like, if you're going to hire me, pay me the money, and then a month later being like, well, you know, we didn't sell a billion more cheeseburgers, it didn't work. I'm like, that you can't deem that success. I think like it's,
for sure.
I understand it's frustrating, but like, you need to build that identity, because that's where people go. For like, sure. Especially in New York, don't fucking use Yelp. Like, when people want to look at a restaurant or find out about a restaurant, they go to Instagram. They look at that page. They look at the geotag. They look at who's coming in. They look at you, like, they look at all that stuff. It matters so much. I'm trying to stress that more than anything.
What do people? So let's just say, like, maybe not you in particular, but the average New Yorker that you talk to. You mentioned a restaurant. What's the first place they go to look at that restaurant? Is the Instagram versus any other review site?
Absolutely. I mean, I think maybe they'll discover it maybe on a review. So like, if Eater does a write-up, like, oh, wow, cool. Like, what is this restaurant? Then they're going to Instagram. Like, but you like, what about Google? Just searching it? Still Instagram over Google? Yeah. Like, what's going to come up? I mean, I guess if you were desperate for more reviews, but like, I don't know how many places would you, like, the restaurants that I would go to, I'd find like, who's reviewing them? Eater, Infatuation. That's it. So like, I don't know what else you're Googling. And like, Eater got rid of their star reviews now anyway. So it's like, no, but actually, it's an interesting point that you bring up, because so like, part of our software product is it's like, you can imagine it like Salesforce for restaurants. Okay. So basically we have all these automation tools. You can create email and text campaigns and all this great stuff. One thing when we were selling our product probably 7 months ago, when we were first launching it, was like, hey, if somebody comes in and redeems some kind of coupon offer, we have the ability to follow up with that customer and ask for a review. And you know what's interesting is nobody gave a shit. Like, like nobody, like, I was thinking, oh, like, everyone's gonna think this is so cool and it's a great way to get reviews. And like, it was kind of like, like, really, like, so it's kind of like what you're saying. I mean, like, maybe these review sites they're gaining less power. Maybe they're people care less. I mean, I think especially, you know, when I travel, I use them a little bit more, because I find like the resources aren't there. Like, there aren't a billion food accounts in some random small city. So like, it is helpful to go look at that stuff. In New York, especially, it's like, if you go to a geotag of a restaurant, there's 1,000. And like, not that these influencers are reviewing, so you can't necessarily judge it off that, but you could judge it off of like, wow, a lot of people seem to be here and they seem to have enjoyed their experience. And then like, I go to YouTube to watch stuff too. Like, if like I went to Montreal 2 weeks ago, like the way I find restaurant in New York is basically everyone pitching me. When I travel, it's much more like me discovering. Yeah. So what I do is I first start with, I have collections on Instagram. So anytime I see something I want to eat, I save it. So just in case I end up there. So I start with that. Like, cool. For years, I've been collecting restaurants in Montreal. Let's start there. And then I ask my friends, and I literally ask my audience to put up a question box. Hey, if you guys know where I should eat in Montreal, tell me. I literally look up every single place someone DMs me, write them all down, and then I start digging into them. So I start with the Instagram, see if there's a dish that seems interesting to me. What is this restaurant? Yeah. And then to really start paring it down, then like a little bit, I'll look at like, Infatuation, if they have a list, that's good. Eater reviews are good. Go into YouTube, even like, just because YouTube is a lot more in depth than Instagram ever would be, no matter what the video is. But even if like, you know, Business Insider was in Montreal, they did a bunch of poutine stuff. Like, right, then I can watch this video and have a pretty good sense of it. And then, take it from there. Absolutely. But yeah, I completely agree with you on the social thing. You said earlier, like, they're not utilizing it that well.
I think for a lot of restaurants, like they've just been frustrated on Instagram in general from the last
Mhm.
year or so. They've seen a huge drop in engagement. That's why for me,
That's
I started looking
everybody.
at
That's everybody though. So
yeah.
they can't get frustrated by that. That's the platform.
I'm kind of curious actually. So like, obviously people are going to Instagram to check out food. I got a friend who's working on kind of like this review slash Instagram hybrid specifically for like experiences, more so in particular for like restaurants.
Mhm.
Do you think there's a space for an app like that in the market? Something that's you could search it, you could kind of get the vibe like Instagram, but you're also getting a number of people that have recommended it.
Um, I think it almost has to be more niche because I think like I think
What if
just
it's
saying
just restaurants?
I think even beyond, I think like it needs some. I think it needs some gimmick because I just think like,
Mm,
then you're also asking just only because I've been approached by so many apps about everything. I
yeah,
find
I
that
can
like I
imagine.
just ask the questions I ask myself. It's just like, okay, would I download this? What's going to make me download this? And I think
Yeah,
like something even like one just for cocktails already is like, oh, well, like I don't see a lot of cocktail stuff, and I love cocktails. That's really helpful. Or even like whatever it is.
interesting.
Like I think being a little bit more specific is help. I think that's what's going to make someone download it because you can't really search Instagram. It's hard. You could generally find restaurants on Instagram. That's easy. But if you're like you can't type in best cheeseburger. You do that on YouTube, but on Instagram, you can't type in best cheeseburger and find if you just want cheeseburgers or whatever. So like
Yeah,
adding some incentive of like it just like and like that niche stuff is like how things bubble. Like
yeah,
even a random app. I mean, I kind of stopped using it, but an app I was playing around for a while was like it was just like a craft beer app. It was just like for people to review and write, like you would just scan the barcode of whatever beer you tried and give it like 5 stars or whatever. And
yeah,
like I downloaded that because I'm like, oh, I want to learn more about craft beers. And like people are such nerds about it that like the people that are on there love it. And it's such a good
yeah.
way to like, I literally being like, there's a market in my building and they always have all these local breweries. I don't know anything about the beers. Like you could just go around and scan it and like see what like all these people that are really invested in craft beers had to say about this craft beer. Like it, like that kind of thing was very cool.
I like that a lot. No, that's interesting. By the way, I actually invested in this app, so that's good tips. I'm gonna tell them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I had another. So okay, I interviewed someone earlier this week. His name's Ashish Tolstein. He's the founder of. It's called Possist. It's another software company. They have about 9,000 restaurants they work with in like 30 something countries. It's insane. The guy was telling me what he sees as a big trend too, and it kind of contradicts what you were saying, but it could be different, obviously. Different
Mhm.
opinions, of course. I love. He was saying he sees a major trend towards not being restaurant focused, but like dish focused. He was saying there's a trend towards a restaurant just pushing. They make the best, most cheesiest, most
Yeah.
greasiest cheeseburger.
Uh,
You see
I, I
that,
could,
or
I could see that only because like, if you're going into the restaurant world in terms of like, I want to make money, then I think like you look that model because you look more casual QSR. Like, what is that? What's that one thing we could do? We
yeah,
save food costs. It's easy messaging. I totally get that way. I find that if you are a chef and you want to own your restaurant, your dream isn't to goddamn make one thing. Your dream is
you're
to
right.
conceptualize a menu and
Yes,
go to go to the Union Square Market and see what's fresh and make the menu that
yeah.
way. Like, so I see both sides of it. I think if you're coming at it from a financial part of it and more maybe the restaurateur side of it, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think if you're still like more chef driven, I think those chefs are going to not want to do that shit at all. They'll go do their
Yeah.
stuff for 10 years and then decide they want to make money and then maybe do that. But I think like their dream isn't to do that necessarily.
I think it's a very great point. It's a very great point. Yeah, it's like you have this guy. He put his whole passion and life towards this, and he's not going to make just this one thing forever. He's not going to. That's a good point.
It's a good to have a side business like that. Like even like with Bobby, like he has all the restaurants, but like he has his burger place. They
Yeah,
make fucking burgers and his burgers are great. And like that, there's so much more potential for money making there than the restaurant, but he still has this restaurant to be passionate what he really loves. And, and he also like when you're conceptualizing a QSR and fast casual, like you're not, the head chef is not going to be there flipping burgers
for
anyway.
sure.
It's just more creating the menu and making sure things are running more the business end as well. And then like you could go be a chef at the restaurant. So I think the balance is nice.
For sure. Also, I should have asked this earlier, but I'm just thinking about it now looking at your Instagram. The name Brunch Boys, where does that come from? What does that mean? The Brunch Boys.
So Basically,
Yeah.
the reason why it all started, all this stuff was like, I just always made shows online. It was just something I did between gigs just to be creative, to get that frustration out of not being in control. So the original idea was just supposed to be a YouTube show about brunch and called
Yep.
it Brunch Boys. So that name sort of stuck as I was growing and grew with it. The name made less and less sense. As great of a name as it is, I love that name. Alliterations
Yeah.
are cool. It's very easy. My name is hard to say. But I think it was also a name that reflected what social media was 7 years ago when 8
Yeah.
years ago when I started the account, where it was very brand focused. Like the first food account that took off was Infatuation.
Yeah.
So like that was what a food account was. It was branded, it was cold, you reposted.
Totally.
There's no person behind it. And social media has just shifted so far away from that to just be so personality driven that like I kept the name forever and it's still the name of my company. But generally I moved away from it just because like my value is who I am much more than anything else. So then who am I? Well, I'm not a bunch of boys who goes to brunch. I'm me. So it made sense to slowly move away from it. It's still part of my branding just because like that name is out there a lot. And every article for the past 8 years says Brunch Boys. So it's important for every level to keep it part of the branding. But generally now it's just like, well, it's always been me. So might as well just be me.
Yeah. That makes sense, man. Same thing with us, right? Our name was Misfit Media. At the time, we did marketing for anyone and everyone, and we were pretty average at it. And then over time, we got better and better and better. We started focusing on the restaurant space and now Dine Line. So I totally get it. You start somewhere and then obviously you grow into something else. What are some like opportunities you see in the restaurant space? What are some things that you're like, man, more people should be doing this? Or why don't restaurants care more about this?
I mean, well, if you want to open up a restaurant in New York City, it's been getting better, but I want more like legit Mexican food because I could go to LA and it's endless. And New York are still like, there is great Mexican food. A lot of it is a little bit more higher end.
Yeah.
It's like, in New York. Yeah. Cause just like we never had that influx of Mexicans like California, like in LA, you could like pretty quickly and easily get like actual Mexican produce made by actual Mexican people. It's a little harder here. So I want legit Mexican food in New York. That's what I want.
It's funny because I have to totally agree with you, but I'm the exact opposite. We have so much great QSR Mexican concepts here in LA, but I want more high-end Mexican restaurants. Like where are the high, like what the hell? Like I want a nice sit-down Mexican restaurant. Why the hell not?
You want Cosme.
Whatever that is, sounds cool.
So Cosme is like one of the most expensive high-end restaurants, one of the best Mexican chefs in the world. It's this restaurant here in New York City. It's incredible, but a very different experience than like a Mexican grandma making me tacos, which is one of my favorite things to do. Like I went on a taco crawl in LA. Like we literally ended up in someone's house and they just like make tacos in their house and sell.
No way.
This is what I want in New York.
Wow. Yeah, there's something about that too. Which is amazing. Are you in LA a lot, by the way? Do you travel a lot throughout the States? I mean, I know you travel a lot in general.
I travel a lot. I was like, pre-COVID stuff, I was in LA probably every other month.
Wow.
For something would take me out there. I love the food out there. I love it's a nice break from New York, LA. So it's been almost 2 years now, which is kind of crazy.
Wow.
But I've been trying to get back to travel. I was traveling once a month for something. Something would come up. And now trying to get back to it a little bit. Like I said, I was in Montreal 2 weeks ago. I'm going to Nashville in a few weeks. It's just a fun way. It's a fun way for me to get content. I think like it makes me different. There's a million accounts in New York, and I love New York. And
did you do any travel this summer? I know like pretty much like the whole world looks like they were in Mykonos at one point.
No, I didn't do any of that. I was in Austin, maybe February.
Yep.
March, February.
Great food there too.
A wonderful food. I kind of was just like, I had been trapped in my apartment for months on end. I'm like, I just need to go somewhere where there's space. So I spent a week there. I go to South Beach Food and Wine Festival every year. So I was in Miami for a few weeks, May time. But that was it. I don't deal well in the heat. So I was just like, I would prefer to, I'm going to do a lot more traveling in the fall now that like I could enjoy the next side. Even like I went to Montreal thinking like, well, it's north of New York. It can't be hotter. It is miserably hot in Montreal. Do not go there in August. I did not realize that it's somehow hotter and more humid in Canada than it is in New York. I'm not a scientist. I don't understand why, but
Interesting.
it did not work out my plan. It was hotter than it was here. So I'm like, all right, now that we're getting to fall, great. Nashville, maybe Chicago, maybe Miami again. Maybe I got to pick October what I want to do. So yeah, a lot more, at least domestic travel.
Got it. Absolutely. I love Miami in general. The place is amazing.
Miami kills me though. I can only be there for 3 days.
Yeah,
In
it's a
Miami,
lot.
have you been there recently?
I was there last week actually.
Oh Jesus, it's like, listen, Miami's crazy. It's too crazy. Like I had to walk one night because I couldn't even get a car. I walked 45 minutes on South Beach.
Really?
Because it was so insane that there were no cars and traffic was so slow anyway. I was like, I guess I'm just walking, whatever.
Interesting.
I was like, man, like people need to chill, and I'll go back to Miami a little bit.
Yeah. Too much partying. What do you think, like, what do you think restaurants should be doing right now if they want to grow their business? I mean, obviously a lot has changed with COVID, right? A lot of restaurants that we were working with previously never even had any kind of delivery strategy whatsoever. Now everyone is doing delivery.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are some other things that you think that they should be doing, you know, from an operational perspective or just like an online marketing perspective to get better each day?
I mean, I think just operational. I think I think it is doing it. Like I said, like the influx of delivery has been amazing. Like that has been a positive of like so many restaurants now that like I order in a lot of my meals. I honestly order in much more than I go to restaurants. So there's a ton of restaurants that like, yeah, eventually I'll get there, but it's so much easier to be like, well, I'm tired, I just want to try it. And then we order it in. The fact that a lot of like nicer restaurants now are happy to do delivery. It's become such a part of the business. That's been really great for me. And my guess is for them, it's a whole new revenue stream. It's not always easy for them if they're slammed. They don't want to then be having to do deliveries and whatever. Sure. And even what you've seen too is like slimming down the menu a little bit, as much as like that's sort of annoying to the customer. Maybe I think like people have just been a little bit more focused on like, okay, we can't even get all this stuff in, all this produce in that we need. Slimming down the menu, thinking about the menu a little bit more. Yeah. Which I'm okay about. Like I don't need to go to a restaurant and have a 10-page menu, whatever.
I fully support that too.
Half, it's fine. Yeah.
In New York, also out of curiosity, I know there's like the vaccine mandate now, right? So you can't go to a restaurant without presenting a card.
It's in soft launch right now. It doesn't actually go into effect for 2 more weeks. So you are able to start, but like no, New York, the city of New York is not penalizing you yet. Got it. So far, I've only had one place check me. Got it. And basically, like New York, we have the Excelsior Pass. So it's just a New York State app that you've connected to your test, and it could be in your Apple. It's in my Apple Wallet, and there's a barcode. So far, no one has scanned it. They just sort of look at that and look at your ID. And then, yes, you could have your paper one with you, whatever form you want to show them, even I'm sure a photo.
But that's going into effect in 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks, if you are not doing that, you will be penalized by the city of New York. You can't go into a restaurant. You can't go into a restaurant, a gym, anywhere you are gathering with people you don't know. You have to have proof of vaccination. Now, what's been great is all these restaurants now have outdoor space. A lot of them. Yeah. You can still sit outdoors. You have options, basically, but you cannot go inside that restaurant.
Interesting. And what's been the reaction of restaurateurs in New York from this?
It's been twofold. I think a lot of them wanted to do this, but they could not do it because they can't be the bad guys. They can't be the ones where I'm asking you. They have to have the city behind them because they were not going to deal with that shit. I think the frustrating part is that there's no guidelines on how to do this. So it's like now you have to teach the hostess how to do this, and a hostess has to deal with this. It's like their jobs are already really fucking hard, and they don't want, like, listen, 99% of the people who are going to come into that restaurant are going to be like me, especially in New York, and they're going to be thrilled that someone's checking. I'm ecstatic when someone asks me for the vaccine, like, good, finally, ask me. But it's going to be the 1% every single day that is going to make their lives miserable. So like some places, like the market downstairs for me, like my guess is they're going to reinstate this. Like when we had the mask mandates in place, they basically hired a bouncer. They had the biggest black dude they could. He sat outside, and you were going to have a mask on if you walked into that grocery store.
Oh my God.
So my guess is like, that's an approach, which obviously like is already a staffing shortage. They can't get staff for anything. So where do you find even more staff just to check vaccines? It's really, really, really hard.
See, that's one thing.
Yeah.
That's one thing I was thinking about, right? So like part of our program, there's the ability to basically send out like a coupon that basically gives the customer a QR code that they can basically bring to the restaurant to redeem an offer when it's scanned, right?
Mm.
But it's amazing to me how difficult even that is. Like, come on, the customer literally just shows up with a QR code to get a coupon.
Well, the thing is, like, what the restaurants
You know?
hate though is like, especially with like the proliferation of like the delivery apps, is like in their kitchen they now have 5 iPads
I know.
for every app. They're always going down. There's always something wrong with them. They can't keep up with it. So I think like their thought process is like, oh my god, one more thing I have to goddamn scan.
See, exactly. Dude, well, that's why companies like Ordermark are just blowing up, because I don't know if you've heard of Ordermark, but they basically integrate all those iPads into one.
Oh, smart. Yeah. That's what they need more than any. And as long as it works, because then the POS system, it's like, oh my God, when that shit goes, when everything's going haywire in there, especially like older New York City buildings, like the Wi-Fi keeps going in and out, like, oh God, they hate it. They hate it so much.
It's funny so I actually had the CEO of Ordermark on our podcast too. The guy is literally a real life Jimmy Neutron, boy genius. The guy, I think he's like 20s also, just genius, just like next level, just amazing. I think I think they raised around from SoftBank like last year. Like they're just blowing up. That's what's funny about the restaurant space too, is like just from the tech side, you're seeing these technology brands that never existed that are just blowing up because there's just such a strong need for it in the restaurant space, right? It's just, it's crazy. And then back to you. So how do you you've obviously grown your account quite a bit. Obviously you put years into it. What are some tips that you might have for someone in the restaurant business who's looking to grow a following on social? Any specific tips, tricks that you've come across?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's always a balance of like what messaging you want to get across and what people are going to be attracted to. And sometimes they don't always connect. But I think at the end of the day, it's just like, it's making sure it's you. I go back to an example of like, well, yes, if you had on the menu a cheeseburger that explodes cheese when you take out of a bite, we could probably get a lot of views, but it's like, you don't serve a cheeseburger. So like, how does that help you? Like, and I don't think you need to pivot into being a food porn restaurant. I think you just need to do what's you. And I think like, again, like at this point, what you see a lot more now is like when someone loves the restaurant, they're going to follow the restaurant. So I think like, it's really converting those people to come into the restaurant to follow you. It's almost that way more than the other way around. Get them in there, get them excited. And like I follow, but the restaurants that I follow because one, I want to support them because I really, really like them. But two, I just I kind of want to know what's going on. What are the specials? Like the easiest way for me to know what's happening that night is to see what their stories are that day or whatever.
Are you subscribed to any restaurants like text clubs or anything like that, or no?
Yeah, that's my whole life. I don't need more stuff flying at
me. For sure. No, I can totally see that. But it's just for me. I mean, my one thing with Instagram now that I still obviously use it every day and promote it quite a bit for restaurants to be using and utilizing, right? But like the engagement rate, right? It's like it's so tough to be able to see anything nowadays, right? Like,
yeah, they've made it basically. Instagram has taken the wrong lesson from TikTok, but what they decided was that TikTok is very random. It is and it isn't, but the allure of TikTok is that because it's random, you could have videos blow up and then convert that into more consistency. Instagram sort of like missed the minutia of what that meant and has just decided, oh, more random makes sense. So there's a lot more. I always my dream on Instagram is to be consistent, because when I pitch to brands, I want to be able to know what I'm delivering. It's become a little bit more inconsistent, but at the same time, I have I have stuff that does way, way, way better, but I have stuff that does less. So yes, at the end of the day, it's sort of how it's met in the middle, but I understand that frustration of like, no, I'd rather not even have viral videos. I'd rather just know like every single time I post, X amount of people are going to see it.
Yeah.
So then I could pitch that. I can't be like, well, my video yesterday got 1 million views and today got 100,000. Well, both are pretty good, but I wish I could more guarantee what that delivery is going to be.
Have you worked with a client and created a video, let's just say a video and like boosted it or put some ad dollars behind it?
I have not personally. Like if brands have approached me and they want to whitelist it themselves, that's part of our negotiation of how they're going to do that. Where is it going to go? What kind of thing they want to do? That's usually an add-on to my deals.
I would imagine
they'll do it, but yeah, sorry.
I would imagine that'd be pretty badass for them. I mean, like, damn, if you're working with restaurant we used to work with is called Five Napkin Burger, New York.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. So like what we did for them for a long time was just like running ads just so geo-targeted in their area, right? For
Mm-hmm.
just promoting their burgers. Their burgers look amazing, right? They're like these
Mm-hmm.
really juicy, fat, like whatever, greasy looking burgers that look delicious. But someone like you, I think behind that, targeting customers in that potential area, man, they could be targeting people that are brand new New York.
100%. Like if you know how to do it, it's especially if you're running them on Facebook. I take it back. I have done them on Facebook, just not Instagram.
Okay,
the Facebook boosting, I understand a little bit better, and I don't do it enough just because like I'm honestly lazy with it as much as I'm able to basically see success. Like it ends up being like 0.01 cent for a view, which is insane, or impression or whatever it is. Like
insane.
It's really good. You don't have to spend that much money to reach so many people. And as you said, you could literally target to like a 5-block radius of your restaurant or whatever. I don't personally do it just for Instagram. Like I don't on Facebook because it almost doesn't matter to me, and it is going to be shown to so many people who don't follow me. It's good exposure. I find that like if a brand does it in the wrong way, they're just feeding it to people that already follow me, and now they see the same ad from me 20 times, and they don't necessarily understand that it's if you look at it enough, you know it's whitelisted, but most people don't even know what that means. So they're like, why is Jeremy posting the same ad, which I'm already not happy with 20 times?
Yeah.
On the other hand, I've seen great success with it where like they've done it well, and I've gained a ton of followers from it. Like McDonald's ran an ad that I did with them. It was already actually one of my highest performing posts ever.
Yeah.
People love McDonald's, and I love McDonald's, and it was cool actually. Like it was actually a really fun campaign. I've done a couple really fun stuff with McDonald's actually, but they had a whole campaign about nostalgia. And I was like, okay, well, everyone has nostalgia for McDonald's. This is easy. And they're like, yes, but you cannot talk about being a child eating McDonald's, whatever, lawyer shit. And I was like, well, like, what else am I nostalgic for? So it was actually like, I really thought about it. We went back and forth a few times, and then I was going to LA, and I said to someone, I was like, well, what if I go to the oldest still standing McDonald's is like 40 minutes outside or half an hour outside, whatever, of LA. So I went there. One, it was great. It was a great experience. It was so much fun. I get such fun photos, and people died over it. Of course, they like the old arch and the old thing and everything. It's McDonald's, and everyone knows about it.
So cool. Yeah.
And then McDonald's put money behind that as well, because like they really knew what they were doing. I gained so many followers from it because they were able to really target people that I wouldn't have necessarily reached ever. So when you do it the right way, it's great. It's beyond the scope of what I do. So when a brand wants to do it, depends, but there's definitely success with it.
Absolutely. And so like, okay, let's just say someone's listening to this podcast right now, and they're like, hey, like this sounds really cool. I want to work with someone like Jeremy, someone to help my social account, manage my page. What can a restaurateur expect to pay for something like that? Maybe not particularly with you, but maybe someone like you. What is the price point these days for someone to work with like a social media manager?
I think it depends. I think you're looking at a few $1,000s a month at least, though. I think that depends on what exactly they're doing, like how much of the content they're producing themselves. Are they posting like a lot of like if a restaurant wants me to work on their social, I do a few clients here and there. It's not my main income source at all, and it's not something I do a lot of just because I don't have the time to. When a restaurant approaches me and I think I could have fun with it, is more when I'm interested in it. But a lot of it I pitch of like, okay, well, you're getting a photo shoot a month, and you're going to get X amount of videos that we could use, and we're going to post this many days. Like I lock in all those things, and then we can negotiate the price from there to make it work. So I think that depends, but I think you're looking at a few $1,000s, which yes, I understand like that's frustrating for an owner, but like it's a real job, and these, it's necessarily like, or do you want to pay PR, which is probably double that. Yeah. And a lot of PR agencies now do social, and they have social experts and whatever. And that might be part of that package as well, but maybe you don't need PR, or maybe you're a restaurant. Like honestly, most restaurants, you're not going to see anything from PR. PR is for opening. It's for stories. Like writers don't care unless there's something there. And most restaurants, even having amazing food, that's not a story. So you're going to be really frustrated if you go the PR route, where on social, you're basically always going to see some positive. Maybe it's not positive enough and you decide you don't want to spend any money on it. But generally, I think you're going to see a lot more of that, a lot more stuff happening from spending money that way than just general PR.
100%. 100%. Awesome. And then I guess just like final questions, but if you could step into my shoes right now, what would you have asked yourself that I missed or that I didn't ask?
I mean, for me, what I'm really fascinated in is always what's next in a social sphere. So like you've seen the rise of like food and TikTok has risen the past year of mostly chefs or people cooking. I want to say more than chefs. And most of that was due because like they all rose during TikTok. They were locked in their apartments. So they or the houses or whatever. And they could cook and they could make these videos and they could blow up. So I think like that first huge push on TikTok was cooking videos.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of friends that pivoted to cooking when they couldn't go to restaurants. And while I'll do cooking videos in my apartment because whatever, like I cook and it's fun. When I'm inspired and something's cool, I'll do it. But I never wanted that to be the focus because it's not what I'm passionate about. Like I'm passionate about telling other people's food stories rather than my own.
For sure.
So it's exciting to me. And I kind of always knew in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, the world is going to open back up. So if I sort of like bide my time on TikTok and not be a completely different thing that I don't want to be, wait out the storm, and then people are going to be dying to go to restaurants. And it's exactly what I've seen happen. Like my TikTok like was this for 2.5 years, and over the summer it exploded. Because of course people want to go to restaurants, and where all my food friends that were doing really well on TikTok are only known for recipes. I've just been consistently pumping out restaurant videos. So I'm excited to see like that world of TikTok and where that goes and what interesting spaces people take with it. Hopefully I'm part of that. I'm trying to be part of that, but I think like that's exciting to see like where does that side of it go? Especially like that's a big reason why I want to travel too. It's like,
do you think TikTok ever will? Do you think TikTok ever will overpower Instagram?
No, I think the value of TikTok, it will not. Just the way the thing is a few things. I think Instagram, one, you still predominantly reach your audience. So when a brand works with you, I can say, here's my demos, here's my audience. I basically know this amount of people I'm reaching, and the people that I'm reaching, I've reached for 7 years. So when I tell them about a restaurant, or when I tell them about the thing you're paying me for me to talk about, or, whatever it is, jeans, I don't know, whatever I'm wearing. Like I have 7 years of trust, and there's so much value there. And Instagram is so personal, and like you follow someone because you really, really like them. And stories is really powerful.
Totally.
We're in TikTok, when you're posting, yes, my engagement on TikTok is actually higher, so on TikTok, I have 110,000 followers, and on Instagram, it's like 440, whatever it is. I could see on average, TikTok, I probably have much better engagement on videos that do well. Those videos to TikTok will do significantly better.
So actually it's more consistent for you then.
Almost, but at the same time, it's not reaching people that follow me necessarily. It's just reaching random people, which is great. That's why you grow so quickly. Like that's the power of TikTok, is growth and new followers and a ton of likes, but it's not necessarily that trust factor there. So it's like when I'm then have to do a branded thing and I'm pitching something that you really have to listen to me about more than this cheeseburger. Who am I reaching? What am I doing? So that value is so much less than Instagram. And even that number value of who you're going to reach. Like I always say, like, to me, 1 million followers on TikTok is basically the equivalent of like 100,000 followers on Instagram. In terms of like reaching your audience, those numbers sort of work out. And that's sort of the same value of it too. So I think Instagram is always like the most powerful connection you have to your audience. And like that core power remains there. But the idea of growth and engagement and everything's on TikTok. So there's tons of value in TikTok. I don't take that away from them. But in terms of like monetary value, it's much more on Instagram.
Well, that's interesting what you say though, because so like my Instagram, I think I'm at like 28K. My TikTok is like 37K now or something. But I'll get like 100K plus videos all the time on TikTok, where like I posted a couple reels on Instagram. I think my best has like 80,000 or something. But like I just feel like almost that following on TikTok is way more effective than it would ever be on Instagram. If I'm looking at the same level as far as reach, like I'm reaching literally millions of people, where Instagram that'd be like impossible for me.
But those people don't follow you. So again, then when you're like selling something where my power is my voice, they don't care. They don't know who I am. Why would they listen to me so it's like it's much to me like the value of when I work at brands is much more like, let me reach the people that follow me. Those are the important people.
I get it.
Just getting straight views and engagement is going to be higher on TikTok. But like when someone's paying you, I think they're paying you for your voice to your audience.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah, it's because it's the quality of the follower, because they're invested into you in particular. That makes a lot of sense.
Exactly.
Cool, man. Awesome. And so then, and Jeremy, how can anyone find you online? Let's just say some restaurateurs are listening. They're like, damn, I want to work with Jeremy. This guy sounds awesome. Or just want to look you up and follow you. How do they find you online?
Just my name, Jeremy Jacobowitz. Hopefully I pop up. Brunch Boys is a lot easier to spell. I think if you still type in Brunch Boys, you can still find me as well. If you you don't even have to spell Jeremy Jacobowitz right. As long as you slowly type it out, I should come up pretty quickly. So hopefully you can find me that way.
100%, man. Well, hey, Jeremy, really appreciate your time today. That was super insightful. I think for me, I think our listeners got a ton of value today. And next time I'm in New York, I'm definitely hit you up, man. I gotta maybe get some food recommendations.
This is what I do anytime.
100%, man. All right. Well, we'll chat real soon then.
Cool.
See ya.